Quality, authentic Russian pierogi are almost a lost art, even in Russia. Most restaurants have switched to frozen factory-made products. I'm going to show you here how to make the old-style, quality Soviet Russian bakery pierogi, as well as a modern interpretation that I created for one of the best restaurants in St. Petersburg. It's received the highest praise from the local press. Russians are real big on grating vegetables. Extremely common technique in Russia, not very common really anywhere else I've been. Usually food processors are used, or knives of course. So, and this is what we want. I've got 2 ounces of onions that have been grated. This is really, really intense onions because I've screwed up all the membranes by running it through the grater. So this is like the most eye-watering type of onion you can get. I've also got the mushrooms here that have been cleaned and washed. I'm going to cut those up rather in a few minutes, and a few cloves of garlic. This is all we're going to need to begin this. It's very simple. I'll show you real quick here. We're not looking to cut these mushrooms up too tiny, because as they cook, they're going to break up more. This is all we need. This is as small as we're going to need them. Pan's getting hot. I'm going to add oil to it. We'll be fairly generous with this. We'll give it just a minute to get warm here. And I'm going to add all the cut up mushrooms. The usual French rule of not allowing the mushrooms to pile up on top of each other doesn't apply here. It's an entirely different approach. This is the way Russians cook. This is the way you get the results that are authentic. It's not the way that it would be done in France, obviously. And after a couple minutes, you're going to add about a teaspoon of salt to this to help the mushrooms give up some of their moisture. And the heat is on about 7 out of 1 to 10. So we're cooking it, but we're not burning it, that's for sure. It's going to cook for a while this way. In the meantime, I've cut the garlic into small pieces, but we're going to add that later because we don't want to have any of the garlic burn in it, and the mushrooms are going to take a while. Hey, you can see after about 5 minutes you start getting a pool of liquid here on the bottom. That's the mushroom, the water in the mushrooms coming off. Again, not what you would want if this was French cooking, because you'd want to have a lovely brown on the mushrooms. It won't take place. We're basically boiling these mushrooms in their own liquid, but that's what we want. It's been 10 minutes now. You can see that there's actually a little bit of the moisture starting to go the other way. It's starting to actually start to dry out just a little bit now. Now I'm going to add, there's all those cloves of garlic that I cut up into small sized pieces. We're going to basically boil these with the mushrooms. And you'd use a big wad of animal fat of some kind, pork fat, or beef fat is actually very good with this. But I know most people are pretty squeamish of that, so I'm just substituting an ounce of butter into this. If you want it even better, what we would do in a restaurant, we have some extra pork fat from boiling ribs or something. Take a wad of that and throw it in. But people are concerned about health, so you can use butter. So now we're going to keep cooking this for about 10 more minutes. We want to thicken this up. This is about 5 minutes later. And you're going to make sure that you do is keep stirring it. What this fat has done is it's increasing the temperature in the pan. It's driving off more moisture, and what we're getting is mushrooms that are in the fat, or in the butter in this case, with less and less moisture as this continues to cook. And about every 2 minutes, give it a stir. Don't stir it constantly, or it won't brown at all. But also don't let it just stand there and burn either. Just every couple minutes, just make sure that you've got fresh surface on the bottom of the pan where it's cooking at the hottest. It's been 5 more minutes total since the last time. So these have been cooking 20 minutes in all. You can see, if you look, you can see this is pretty oily at the bottom. There's very little moisture. It's almost all fat and mushrooms at this point. That's the stage that we want. Now we're going to add those grated onions in. And we don't want to cook this too long, because we want that strong onion taste in there. If we just keep cooking this to death now, it won't have it. The exact point that you stop cooking this difficult to say. You know, it depends on how the condition of the onion you were in, how a personal preference. Somewhere around 2 minutes is about right for this, but you'll have to taste it and experiment yourself a little bit. About 2 minutes I'm going to let it cook, and then I'm going to take it off the heat. A Russian home cook at this point would probably add some chopped up fresh dill to this. But one of the things you have to do as a restaurant is you have to distinguish yourself and make something a little bit different. So first of all, I'm going to use just a little bit of dried dill because we want that in the background there. Then I'm going to add about a tablespoon of what I've called Spanish sauce. You have to watch my videos. This seems like a very strange thing to add, but in the final analysis, when you put all this together, this will be very good. It'll have a magical kind of flavor to it that you won't be able to figure out. It's like, how did you get that out of these mushrooms? Yeah, that's how. It's one of those restaurant kind of tricks that goes on behind the scenes. So this is pretty good. Now what we have to do is we have to let this cool off. Put this in a container and leave it in the refrigerator, typically till the next day. So you want this to be quite solid and gelatinous so that it's easy to put into the pie dough. Okay, this is the next day. I made the dough just as in the other video. I used slightly less flour. I used 325 grams instead of 350 to make it a moister dough, because now we're going to have filling and we're making pirogi. We're not making bread, but other than that, the recipe is identical. It's just slightly less flour, very slightly less. So the trick here now, after you pull it away, is you get a bowl that has some flour in it. Put some flour in your hand. And you're going to take, this is a very goopy kind of dough. Well, not very, I've seen worse, but still it's pretty goopy. You can do this with a rolling pin, but the results will actually not be as good as if you can just try to do it with your hands. So stretch this out a little bit. I've got the mushrooms from yesterday, and just put a little group of those in there. Kind of fold this up. Best you can. It's going to be a little bit messy. That's okay. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. When it bakes, it'll all seal together. The key here is that you want to make sure that you don't have any pieces that are exposed. If you've got a crack or a seal or something, just pinch it together and smooth it out again. And after a few minutes, you'll get a bunch of these, and you line them up on the same sort of buttered sheet as before. And then, of course, you're going to put a cloth over these, let them raise again, just like last time. And after these cool off, as you can see how much filling is inside. It depends on how much you put in them. I didn't actually put a lot of filling in these because I'm making these at home, and my family likes a lot of bread and not that much filling. You can change it however you like it. But the pastry is really light, very beautiful, and there's large pieces of mushroom, because that's the way they should be. You should be able to tell that it's mushroom in there, not just a puree of goo. Cheap bakeries, cheap Russian bakeries, use a puree so that you can't really tell what it is you're eating. But good quality ones, the way you can see it's good quality is you can still see the pieces of mushroom. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.